Welcome to today's webinar, 2024 Year in Review, APQC Supply Chain Research. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Marisa Brown, the Senior Principal Research Lead for Supply Chain Management here at APQC, and I look forward to reflecting on this past year with you and sharing our research. Our agenda is pretty straightforward. We're going to start by just reflecting on some of the key themes of what's happened this year in supply chain across the world. And then we're going to focus the majority of our time on some major projects and topics that APQC has covered in our research this year. And we'll wrap up by looking forward to 2025. So let's look at the global context for APQC's supply chain research. The landscape this year was really marked by significant disruptions due to a combination of factors. We had extreme weather events, geopolitical tension, labor issues, economic instability, and all kinds of efforts to adopt advanced technologies like AI and data analytics, all while trying to build more resilient and adaptable supply chains and dealing with potential inflation and now tariffs. So let's take a look at some of these themes in a bit more depth. So continued disruptions. Well, it's fine. I'm fine. Everything's fine. But no, it's not. Everything has been a little bit on fire this year. We've seen weather events, like in some cases, very heavy rainfall and flooding and hurricanes, but also in other cases, like the Panama Canal, finally the end of a 2-year drought that really decimated the ability for vessels to transit the canal. We also have dealt with cyber attacks, labor strikes, all kinds of different things that have impacted global trade and transportation. So 2020 was just the first year of disruptions since when the pandemic began, but we're still dealing with all kinds of disruptions here in 2024. Economic uncertainty. There are a lot of concerns around inflation, potential recessionary pressures, and also we're seeing that these impact consumer demand, leading to changes in supplier availability and pricing. And now, here at the end of the year, there's all kinds of conversations about the impact of potential tariffs beginning in 2025 on the supply chain. We did see an increase in the adoption of AI, machine learning, and also data analytics, all with the goal of improving end-to-end supply chain visibility, optimizing logistics, and ideally being able to predict some potential disruptions. And we saw companies continuing to focus on resilience, building a more resilient supply chain with diversified sourcing options, increasing inventory levels, although there's still a lot of disagreement about just in time versus just in case, which is better, which is more appropriate, which one should your organization embrace, and also implementing contingency playbooks to handle disruptions, to react quickly in the face of disruption. In fact, my colleague Maria and I spoke about resilience at the ASCM Connect conference this year. And we saw continued concerns around sustainability. There's growing emphasis, especially on the environmental side, but also social and governance factors, as companies are trying to reduce their carbon footprint and ensure ethical sourcing practices. Increasingly, these pressures are regulatory and legal, not just nice to do, but this is a topic that's been in the news a lot, and things are constantly changing. And then we saw trends for reshoring, onshoring, nearshoring, ally shoring, friend shoring. Pick the name you want. But basically, organizations are looking to move production in many cases closer to their primary markets so they can reduce some of the need for overseas suppliers and mitigate some of these geopolitical conflicts and risks that the impact of these on their supply chain. And also labor unrest. In 2024, we saw dock worker strikes at ports. And in fact, right now there's an airport strike happening. We saw strikes with auto workers, hotel housekeepers, aircraft assembly workers, actors, and so many more. In fact, Cornell University and the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign recorded 250 strikes and other labor actions this year as of September 30th. And underlying several of these strikes, in addition to wages and fair working conditions, is fear or worries about the increasing impact of technology or automation on jobs. So we saw a lot of disruption and unrest happening. So what did APQC do to try and get some answers to some of the most pressing concerns and challenges? So far this year, we are on track to publish over 430 pieces of supply chain content. And our research services team as a whole is looking to smash our own record of 1,800 content items. So we are fast and furiously collecting data, analyzing data, figuring out what works, and getting the word out about it to you, our members, and to the general public as well. And one of the ways we start the year by doing that every year is our annual priorities and challenges research. 2024 was the 10th annual, and we now have the 11th annual in the field currently collecting data, and we'll be reporting that out at the beginning of Q1 next year. But we use the results from this priorities and challenges research to help shape and scope our agenda. And by the way, just a side note, if you opt in for follow-up, I would love to have a one-on-one conversation with you to understand what's most important from your perspective, so that can help inform our research topics. One of the things, and as I go through this webinar, I'll be sharing some highlights from the research we did. But in our priorities research, we always ask, what are the obstacles that are preventing you from improving your supply chain processes? And for the past years, lack of collaboration, both internally and externally, has been in the number 1 or 2, maybe 3 spot. And that's bad and that's good. It's bad because it doesn't seem like we're learning how to improve that and how to mitigate that obstacle. But what's good is that APQC has a whole body of research and content on knowledge management and on helping organizations break the barriers. And this year I published a collection of research on how to improve collaboration in supply chain. So we take your answers to our surveys very seriously, and we use that in many ways to help us get information that is valuable and useful. We also this year published an all-new blueprint for success in sourcing and procurement. Our blueprints are a guide to achieving best-in-class, best practice performance. They start by looking at all the processes and activities that relate to sourcing and procurement in this case, and how that fits in within the enterprise. We leverage APQC's process classification framework to do this. And then what we do is we provide you with some key measures, some KPIs, key performance indicators for those processes and activities. And for those KPIs, we show you what top, median, and bottom performance levels look like. And then the bulk of the report is looking at performance drivers. And we do a lot of work behind the scenes with our statistical and analytical hub to really figure out, okay, what practices and structures are associated and look to have better results in terms of cost and cycle time and all that. And then those are the performance drivers that we publish. So this report has all new performance drivers. Some of them we've seen we reproved from past years, and I encourage you to download this and see what's going on there. Also this year, we did a project on direct and indirect procurement trends. And this was in large part a response to many member requests that I've received over the years. It's not just enough to know at the level of procurement, because in many of our member companies, direct and indirect are entirely separate organizations. So we now have benchmarks and also trends and practices for both direct procurement and indirect procurement. And you can see here there's a collection where we not only give you cross-industry data, but we also give you specific reports by industry, by region, by revenue, and also B2B versus B2C, business to business and business to consumer models. One of the things that we try to do also is keep up with what's emerging, what's hot, what's going on out there. So APQC administers quick polls, which are shorter, faster surveys than our typical deep dives. And here we look at, okay, what are the latest trends in emerging technologies or key practices that people have been asking us about? And in 2024, we covered 6 topics, and I plan to do the same in 2025. We've been doing this for a number of years so we can see the movement over time. This year, we covered digital transformation in supply chain, big data and advanced analytics, sales and operations planning, continuous improvement, and risk management. And I'm open to your input for topics for next year's polls. But this has really helped us be able to communicate cross-industry and also by industry what's going on in these key topic areas. And for each of these, we also create an infographic for a quick visual look at the highlights of our findings. And we would have been remiss this year if we didn't tackle AI and technology strategy in supply chain. So we have two collections in this area, one looking at the state of adoption of AI, not just at the entire level of supply chain, but within each of the key parts, supply chain planning, sourcing and procurement, logistics and warehousing, and also manufacturing. And then also we took a look at how are organizations making decisions and leveraging generative AI, for example, in supply chain, and supporting their AI strategy with specific initiatives. And one of the things that I thought was interesting to note is that 48% of the organizations in our research are focusing on educating their staff on how to work in collaboration with digital labor. And I think this is key when we see that one of the big reasons behind a lot of the labor strikes this year is the concerns about technology. So it's encouraging that about half of the organizations are focusing on helping employees with that, but it's also discouraging that about half aren't doing that. So that's an important step to really making sure that these are changes that stick and are successful. And then shifting gears to sustainability and ESG reporting. We did two projects on that this year, one in conjunction with the Digital Supply Chain Institute, and another looking at ESG reporting practices and processes. And we split out the E, the S, and the G and looked at what are the things people are reporting and how many measures are they reporting. And the one word that really kind of sums up all of that research is complexity. Companies have at the median 50 different environmental E measures that they're reporting. That's not even taking into account the S and the G, which is also about the same volume. So there's a huge number of measures being reported. And when we look at frameworks, we found that more than 50% of organizations in our research are reporting against 6 or more frameworks this year. And that number is expected to grow to 8 by the end of 2025. 8 different frameworks, 150 plus different measures. It is a complex, big, hairy area for companies. And we have more content and more research coming because it is such a big thing going on right now. And it's changing so much. So here's improving collaboration in supply chain. As I mentioned, one of the biggest obstacles to improvement is lack of collaboration or barriers to collaboration. So I highly recommend these articles and these tools and templates that we have available. And for example, for each of the obstacles, like knowledge hoarding, which is where people might feel that knowledge is power, we then provide a couple of best practices for overcoming that obstacle. So, for example, for knowledge hoarding, one of the things we focus on is recommending you answer what's in it for me for employees so that they don't feel that it's a one-way street that they're giving and not getting. And so figure out why would an employee want to share their knowledge beyond just a sense of status and recognition. Explore what motivates different employee groups and roles, and then create tailored messaging that explains what they'll get out of collaboration. And also allowing time for individuals to collaborate. It can't be something that they have to, quote, steal time from their real work to do. Collaboration needs to be baked into the way work happens. So that's just one example from this collection, but highly recommend it for anyone looking to improve collaboration. And then every year, we update our core metrics and process-related content. So we have in all the areas that we cover in supply chain, and not even just in supply chain. I should mention that we do this in finance and in human capital management and in IT and other topic areas. But we create key benchmarks. And the key benchmarks are a curated set of measures. So we go through all of the many measures that APQC has, and we recommend a set of cost, cycle time, efficiency, productivity measures. And for each of those, give you the median, the 50th percentile, and also the sample size we have. And we create industry versions of those as well. So you can get a quick look at, for my industry, on this set of KPIs, here's what the median value is. Are we above or below, right? And then you can delve more deeply into these measures through the Benchmarks on Demand portal and other tools that APQC provides. But we also create tune-up diagnostics, where we take the highest level KPIs, put the 25th, 50th, and 75th percentiles in a spreadsheet for you, and it turns red, yellow, or green when you put your numbers in, just to give you an indication of, are you top performers, bottom performers, or are you in the middle? And then we have explanatory versions of those same tune-ups that tell you why you want to move from bottom to top or median to top on some of those measures. And then we've got content related to picking the right measures, understanding the processes, and making sure that you fully can get the context around these measures, and understand what's included in them. And like I said, we put those in collections, and those are updated regularly. And then I called out product development, product and service development, because it falls under the umbrella of our supply chain research here at APQC, because it's so closely tied into the work you do in supply chain, right? What new materials are needed for new products that has to be sourced? What does the manufacturing process look like for the new products? What kind of specs are there going to be? So it's all tightly connected. And so here we also have key benchmarks, the same cross industry as well as industries. And we have practices reports new this year for 2024, where we went through, and it's kind of the sister, if you will, to the metrics. The metrics are the quantitative numbers, the cost, the number of FTEs, whereas the practices reports look at different structures that may be employed, different practices, different qualitative things, but it still gives you a chance to see what are companies doing. You know, how do you compare? It's still benchmarking, just not quantitative benchmarks. And so we've got those in connected product development, going back to all the new technology that's out there. And then also looking at strategy, process, and measurement practices across product development. And then I included a slide for some additional thought leadership, because every year we publish all kinds of fun articles on different topics, whether it's advice to procurement leaders on focus on what you can control, looking at last mile logistics, looking at outsourcing customer complaints and inquiries, all kinds of fun things. 5 things you need to know about supply chain digital transformation. And so there's all kinds of articles. I included links to a lot of them here. And then these often are in addition to the work we do, and some of these appear in third-party publications that we put out there. So now I want to shift from what we've done so far in 2024 to looking forward to 2025. But before I do, I want to issue a sincere thank you to all of the supply chain professionals who have kept our global economy going through all the challenges and difficulties of 2024. You weathered the storms, coped with the changes, dealt with the disruptions, and endured. You kept goods and materials flowing around the globe so companies and consumers could buy and sell what they needed. And for that, thank you. So now looking forward to 2025, and this is not carved in stone because things change, and we try to keep our research agenda flexible and adaptable and responsive, just like a good supply chain. But some of these projects are already underway so that we have things for you early on in the year, like 2025 supply chain priorities and challenges. That information will be coming out in January to help you make decisions or just to understand how you compare for the whole year going forward. One big project we've taken on is supply chain planning, talent management, and skills for the future. What are the skills needed? Plus, how well are organizations doing in developing these key skills in their employees? In addition, we've collected some brand new metrics in supply chain planning related to numbers of FTEs and costs for the various processes that make up the whole process group for supply chain planning. We also have procurement performance drivers coming out, a project on cybersecurity and resilience. Again, as things are more and more connected, every connection point is a potential entry point for a bad actor, right? It makes you more hackable. I've heard stories of people being hacked through all kinds of smart devices that nobody thought to, really shore up because maybe it was just the light switch, but it's a programmable light switch. It's a smart this, a smart that. So we're going to examine what companies are doing and how they're handling cybersecurity. Then we're going to investigate analytics and data management, do a deep dive there for supply chain. We're planning a joint project with finance on procure to pay. And we'll have more coming on supply chain sustainability because that continues to evolve and be such a hot topic. And more, definitely more. So I'd love to connect with you. I'd like to know what more we should cover. APQC has a voice of member process. If you have ideas for research that you want to see, or you want to know what content we already have on certain topics, or maybe you're tasked with a new initiative and you want to get up to speed quickly, I'd like to hear from you. So please, let's have a voice of member call and talk through your questions and see what I can give you. Please contact my colleague Danielle and she can help set it up at a time that works for you. I also invite you to check out my regular columns in supply chain publications. In Supply Chain Management Review, I write the benchmark column in each issue, and I also provide an infographic that goes online. And in Supply and Demand Chain Executive, I have a monthly article that's also based on our research. And APQC, as part of our nonprofit mission, does widely disseminate our findings at a high level on other sites like Supply Chain Brain, and we even have an article coming out soon in a peer-reviewed supply chain journal. So please do be in touch. Really look forward to contacting you and hearing from you. And just as a kind of a recap, APQC's supply chain research spans the end-to-end supply chain. I've included links on this page to our expertise page, our research agenda page. Also, every 6 months, we update our Now in the Resource Library, which is essentially a cheat sheet of recently published content. And we have a blog that every month I post. It's an informal entry, if you will, into our APQC Insights. And I included here a link to our supply chain content in the resource library. So I want to thank you for joining today. Please connect with me and let's stay engaged. I want to make sure you get the most recent updates. So thank you for your time, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.